really cool.
Bonjour, hello and welcome to the Rosbiff Rugby Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, top 14, Pro de Nationale, Champions and Challenge Cups, the French national team, of course the brilliant towns, cities, bars, restaurants and everything in between that makes the French game the thing we know and love. Rob, we're back. It's quite a balmy Monday evening. It feels like the season's turned, which is very nice. How are you getting on?
Yeah, less nice when the aircon in your gym is based on the outside air temperature and the coolant is apparently not working. So the spin studio that I was in, little humble brag that I went to a gym. Well done, me.
Drop that.
Yeah, that was about 40 degrees, which was enjoyable for that 40 minutes. I thought I was going to throw up at one point. So yeah, but other than that, it's lovely weather. Yeah.
an early victim to the heat, and it's 19 degrees or whatever. That's fantastic. Yeah. Very good. Well, look, let's get straight into it. We've got a brilliant weekend of European rugby coming up, the Champions Cup, 2 incredible semi-finals. Leinster v Toulon, followed by Bordeaux hosting Bath at the Matmut Atlantique. And we were very lucky earlier this evening to be joined by a man, an authority on all things Leinster, all things Heineken Cup. And all things rugby, having won the bloody thing and played loads of it and taught loads about it. So please enjoy from earlier our chat with one Bernard Jackman. All right, the Champions Cup semi-final weekend and Challenge Cup, of course, is here on the horizon. It should be an absolute belter, and who better to join us than a man who has not only won the competition, but represented Ireland, Leinster, and perhaps even better coached in France as well. Is now one of the most respected voices in the game as a pundit, analyst and commentator. A massive Rosbiff Rugby welcome to Bernard Jackman.
Thanks, Richard, and thanks, Rob, for having me on. I follow you on social media and listen to the Food Podcast, so delighted to get a chance to have a chat, particularly this weekend with obviously Bordeaux and Toulon playing the best of England and the best of Ireland in 2 semi-finals, and the Challenge Cup as well. Should be a bit of fun, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, it should be absolutely fantastic. We were just talking before that. You were commentating on one of the protagonists or antagonists, depending on which way you look at it, this weekend coming. Leinster in Treviso on Saturday evening was quite some game from what we could make out.
Yeah, really interesting, Richard. Leinster over the last 3 or 4 years have tended to rest all their frontline players the week before the semi-final or final, and I think it's been something that they've decided wasn't the best way to approach it, that they're better off. There's obviously an injury risk, and they may have actually lost Tyke Furlong because he played, but they felt that they were going into that game a little bit cold, so they sent a very strong team to Benetton, 12 changes from the week before. Now there's still some players to come back in, like James Ryan, Joe McCarthy, Gary Ringrose, Hugo Keenan, but it was strong. You know, Dan Sheehan played, Caelan Doris, Jack Conan, Gibson Park, Harry Byrne will be the first choice 10, Rico Ioane played, Jamie Osborne. So it was a strong Leinster team, and they lost. They lost to the last minute. Penalty kick, Umaga kicked a nice penalty from 40 metres, and Leinster left with 2 points. And the game was level when in the 81st minute, Leinster got caught kind of overplaying in their own half. So I think they'll be very disappointed with that. Again, defensively, they got ripped apart a little bit out wide, and it's interesting. So in the Six Nations, so last year Ireland were kind of defending a little bit like Leinster and a little bit like Ireland. It was a mix. And it's a different system. The Jacques Nienaber system is different than the Simon Easterby system. This Six Nations, it seemed to be exclusively the Simon Easterby system, less aggressive, less kamikaze, more decision making on defence, more staying connected. And the last couple of games for Leinster, they've eased off on what we would say is the Jacques Nienaber line speed. But against Treviso, actually, they were very aggressive. And they got caught. And Treviso had some pace on the edges with Mendy and a Dogbu, and Leinster got hurt. And I think it was a really good kind of warning shot to them headed this weekend, because watching Bordeaux or watching Bayonne play Toulon at the weekend, and you look at Dran and you look at Ferte, they have got speed on the edges, and if Leinster don't get it right and they go for broke, they'll punish you. They'll punish you, and they just seem to be hitting form at the right time. So it's going to be really interesting whether Leinster kind of back off a little bit and trust their decision making ability, or they're just going to implement a system and hope to shut down Toulon, because we saw last year against Northampton in the semi-final. I think Northampton scored over 30 points and hit Leinster from deep, but Northampton were a team with a lot of pace, and I think Toulon are a team with a lot of pace as well. So it's setting up to be a fascinating tactical battle as much as anything else, and obviously you've got star quality on both sides.
Regards to that kind of star quality piece, we see a bit of Leinster in the Champions Cup, and they've been so prolific and such an amazing side in the club game for so long. It feels as a non-expert on Leinster in the URC that there may be a couple of little cracks that there haven't been in the past. Obviously, I know it's a tough league, and a bit like the top 14, it doesn't necessarily shake out to the very end. But where do you see in terms of this sort of cycle of Leinster? Where are they in the last sort of, compared to where they've been in the last few years, and where do you think their kind of real strengths are going into that Toulon game?
So this has been their most difficult URC season in quite a while. They're still probably only get top two seeds because they've two home games left. But yeah, they've lost more games this year than they normally do. They had a very slow start. I think they were so lucky. They had a kind of a golden generation of players who were very happy to stay in Leinster, regardless of whether they were getting to play all the big games. So their drop off from having all the internationals available to their second string was actually not that significant. Now, a little bit of budget pressure, as every professional club has had. Teams now seem to want to have the stars and then the youngsters, and the middle of the road, 100 capper who's not playing Test rugby anymore is getting squeezed out a little bit. You saw some guys like, I suppose, Ross Maloney went to Bath, Ross Byrne went to Gloucester. They're the type of players that were unbelievably important to Leinster on a weekly basis and helped them be very consistent. Also, the Stuart Lancaster effect. I think Stuart, and we see this with Connacht, the way Stuart coaches, the way his training sessions are ran, there's very little drop off between Team A, Team B. They can play, and Leicester's model is a different model now under Jacques Nienaber, and it is more around that first choice 15 or first choice 23, and they accept there's going to be a drop off, I think, when they're out there. So I think certainly attack wise they haven't been anywhere near as good as they were, yet they still have the capacity to score plenty of points. The biggest thing they have is power, and when they play inferior opposition like Edinburgh or Sale Sharks, they can still rack up a lot of points because they're so good at getting 22 entries. And then when you get in there, they just stay on top of you. Their ball retention is good, and teams normally crack. The challenge is when they've come up against the La Rochelle or Toulouse or a Northampton last year, who didn't give them those entries or weren't getting bullied by them in the power battle. They haven't been able to find other ways of scoring or dealing with it. So again, until they meet a Toulon or they meet a Bordeaux or a Bat, or they maybe run into a Stormers at the end of the URC, we're not really sure. We're not really sure because they played the Stormers this year early. They went to South Africa early without their international, so we haven't had a chance to really judge them against a team that on paper should be able to go toe to toe with them. If that makes sense, because they have the vast majority of the Irish team. So Robert Balakoon came in, did a brilliant job for Ireland in the Six Nations. But on the other wing, it was James Lowe. You have Tommy O'Brien. You have Jimmy O'Brien. You have Irish internationals too deep in every position. You have two British and Irish line hookers. They have 3 second rows for British and Irish line. So it's a phenomenal squad, really. Obviously, Rico Ioane is there as well. Now, Snyman being injured is a blow because he was a player who gave them something different off the bench. Big impact, offloading game, power game, special player. So him being out is a little bit of a blow. But and they've got an injury crisis at Loosehead as well, in particular, where their first three choice, one is doubtful. Porter may make it back, but behind him, Paddy McCarthy, Jack Boyle are out for the season. And then their next in line, a fellow called Alex Usanov, he also got injured. So they're loose at the moment. Their main loose at the moment, if Porter doesn't get back, he's a part-time rugby player. He works for a company called Vodafone, and he's been playing in the All-Ireland League for the last 3 or 4 years. And because of the injury crisis, got called in, and now he's kind of job sharing as such. Now they brought back Ed Byrne from Cardiff last week. He's a former Leinster player who'd left to give them some additional cover there. But it's a proper crisis, and I coached Becca Gigersvili in Grenoble. Obviously, we all know how good Kyle Sinclair is. We know they're going to have a big, heavy back five. So the scrum is certainly an area that Toulon will have to smell blood and feel that they can get dominance there.
I think, like we've said a few times, I think at their best, the Toulon tight five is the best tight five in France in terms of the all-court game, because Gross and Sinclair around the park are exceptional, and they are both rock solid at scrum time. And then if it's Ribbons and Alanoisi, or if they put Olivon in there, they've just got so much physicality in that second row as well. So it sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like Leinster could be the perfect team for Toulon to be facing. I wouldn't back them against many teams right now or this season. They've definitely underperformed, but it sounds like the areas that Toulon might be strong might actually be the areas that Leinster are weak. How do you see Toulon? Like, how have you?
Yeah, so I'm disappointed with them. And when the draw was, I watched them kind of beat Glasgow. It was a great win. It was away from home. But I think we've seen Glasgow since have completely fallen away. So maybe Glasgow were just about to have a little bit of a dip, and Toulon exploited that. I watched them in the group stages play Munster. They were pretty poor. I've seen them play a few times. Obviously, their top 14 results have been very mixed. But I think that Glasgow win, and obviously the Pierre Mignoni stuff, it might just have been a turning point for them. And when you have players like Garbisi, Serran, Albanos, Ben White, Mercer, Ribbons, you mentioned Sinclair, Jean-Baptiste Gross, like Brex, they won't have any fear. They'll say, well, we're good enough to win a European Cup, and we're definitely good enough to get to a final. And I think they're peaking at the right time. I thought there was a lot to like about how they went about dismantling Bayonne. It was one of the best performances I've seen from them this season. And they have the front five, but also they have, well, they certainly have the four quality halfbacks. They've got lots of options in the centre, and I already mentioned the pace they have on the edges, and Jamine obviously at fullback. They've got some options there. So I think they're a far more dangerous side now than they were 3 weeks ago when the straw was made. And obviously they have history in this competition, which a lot of people don't. And it's not this group don't have it, but when you play for a club who have 3 stars, you know about it. And you've got a responsibility to show up. And it's a very interesting game for Leinster. I think Leinster, you mentioned the all court game. I mean, the Maul, Leinster took 2.5 tries at the Maul. The third one, they got mauled 10 meters and ended up being a pick and go from there. But they were very vulnerable to mauling against Treviso the other night. And it's an area, the top 14 game, that's so much more important. Generally, the top 14 clubs are so much better at the maul than the URC team. So certainly, again, that's an area that you fancy them being able to maybe get some an imprint on the game through. And you get taken apart at the scrum, you're taken apart at the maul. It can be quite difficult to breed, and certainly, I think Leinster are very, very worried about this game, more worried than they have been in a while.
Yeah, feels fascinatingly poised.
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, the physicality of Leinster. I think Toulon generally, for all their array of talent, they've reverted to up the jumper, hammer it away around the fringes, and so that, and they haven't clicked in attack all times. If they can get it to Ferte and Dreyan, then awesome. And Jamine is the kind of key in that to kind of bring those guys in. But generally, they have just powered teams around, blunt instruments around the fringes. So again, that might not be, and they're very good defensively around the fringes because Sinclair, Bobigny, Gross, they miss a bit without having Priso there as well. But their tight five around the fringes are so physical. So yeah, you've convinced me that Leinster are going to going to lose by about 20 points.
No. All right. No, Leinster have it. They have the capacity. It's a unique one for them. So last year, if you remember, they won their last 16 game and their quarterfinal. I think they beat Glasgow and Harlequins to nil. It was something like 42-0, 38-0, or something like that. It was definitely to nil, and they went into the Northampton game. I think there was one eye on either Bordeaux, and they got completely caught. So they're not going into this in any way cocky or. But actually, in fact, it's nearly worse because there's doubts. There's doubts around their game, and now the upside of that is you've got British and Irish Lions galore, and they also know that they have won a European Cup since 2018. I mean, to have so many Irish internationals, players who were able to win Grand Slams, to be Test series winners in Australia, and not have more European Cups is a bit of a failure. And I think that there is an edge there. They want to change that, and they don't want to spend their whole career in Leinster not having won significant silverware there as well. So there's definitely two big games in them. Obviously, I mean, if they can win Sunday or Saturday, and then obviously a final, they haven't been anywhere near as impressive as Bordeaux or Bath at times. Even in the group stages, a lot of the performances were just doing enough. But Ireland had a good Six Nations finish. Players came back to the province in good place physically, good place mentally, and it's just a case of whether Cullen can get that big performance out of them now. And then it's obviously not that far to the end of the season, and you could be lifting two trophies. That's the expectation in terms of when you look at Leinster's players against all the other squads. They should be able to at least win one trophy and maybe two. And I think that's the upside for them, is that can they find a really good week prep and execute a good game plan for 80 minutes? If they do, they're good enough to beat Toulon. But as I said, at the moment, you're not basing that on anything recent.
It's almost like this year is the year that, because they've stumbled their way through, they're so used to flying through to the semi-finals. It's almost like they've done it a little bit more difficult this year. They've not had it all their own way, and maybe this is the year that there's a little bit less expectation that they're just going to steamroll a team. So maybe this is their year in some sort of ironic sporting way.
Don't forget. I mean, they thought they had an away draw for. They thought they were going to be going to Glasgow. I mean, that's how it looked. That they were going to have to go away for semi-final. Looked like they were going to have to go away in the URC, and obviously Toulon did them a favour really, because they made the game. The game now comes to Dublin, which is a big advantage. It is a big advantage. But I think Toulon have a totally different skill set profile than Glasgow. And it's a profile that, that Leinster, I think Leinster would prefer to play against Glasgow, even if it was away. I think they know what Glasgow are about. They know how to stop them. They haven't got a huge amount of recent good experience with French teams. Even Bayonne ran it very close in Bayonne earlier in the year. And Leinster struggled with that power and size that Bayonne had. It's fascinating.
But just to change tack slightly, you mentioned Becca Gigashvili, who will probably be playing on Saturday. We've been fortunate enough. We've had a few players on who have played and are playing in France, but I think you're the first coach we've had who obviously coached in, I think, both Pro D2 and the top 14 at Grenoble. Tell us a little bit about that, and I guess the challenges are fairly storied of players going over, but I guess as a coach it must have been quite a thing to settle into.
Yeah, it was bizarre. So I always wanted to play in France, but in Ireland, if you leave Ireland, that's the end of your international career unless you're Johnny Sexton. So I was in a very good Leinster team. It was hard. It would have been a hard thing to leave it. So, but I felt if I could get a chance to coach in France, that I would jump at that. And a potential job came up in Grenoble. We'd actually finished top in Pro D2, but lost to the 4 team in the playoff. That one played 4, 2 played 3, and then a final. Back then, there was no automatic promotion, and we lost to Bordeaux at home. So basically, having finished top, the club had kind of expected maybe to get promoted, and they'd made a few signings. There wasn't a huge amount of money there to bring another coach in. There would have been if it was top 14. So I ended up, instead of going full time, I ended up going over for a pre-season as a defensive consultant. So did that pre-season and shook hands at the end of it with Fabrice Landreau on an old-fashioned gentleman's handshake. If they got promoted, I'd go full-time. So effectively, what I used to do was I used to cut up the games from Dublin, analyze it, and then send clips for them to show on a Monday morning with kind of my feedback, if that makes sense. And then I would go over in Brody too. It's quite broken up. So say 4 or 5 rounds, then a week off. So basically, I would go each of those breaks. I would go back for the following week, and we kind of do a reset. We do a recap of where we were over a block rather than a weekly basis, and kept in touch. Thankfully, we got a really good start to season, and we got ahead of everybody else. And that year, you could go up automatically if you won it, and then everyone else went into a barrage. So I went to Grenoble then the second year. So my second year in Grenoble, I was there full time, and we were in the top 14. And like, you know, our goal every year was to stay up. You know what I mean? Like, and like trying to explain that to non-French fans or people who worked in French rugby, it's nearly alien to us. They call it, like they always say, if the French always say to me, "Oh, Anglo-Saxon mentality," or whatever. But they understand that for Grenoble or Mont-de-Marsan or you know, different clubs who don't have the budget, that just staying up is actually like winning a trophy, and it gives you a chance to over time then start to look a little bit higher, because we had a sugar daddy, and in fairness, he was very wealthy. Serge Kempf, he's passed away, Lord of mercy on him, who owns Sagetti and Capgemini. He's from Grenoble originally, but he was also putting a lot of money into Biarritz. He was good friends with Serge Blanco, so we didn't have the benefactor that Stade Francais or Racing had. So basically, we could only eat what we killed, and that meant in terms of selling tickets, selling jerseys, corporate hospitality. And yeah, it was phenomenal. We beat Toulouse in Toulouse in my time there. We beat Racing in Racing. We beat Stade in Stade. Beat Toulon in Toulon. Johnny Wilkins of all people threw an intercept on a penalty advantage, on a scrum advantage after about 7 phases. And just as the ball left his hand, the referee said advantage over, advantage terminate, and we had a Fijian winger, a fellow called Alapati Ratini, an absolute, like he was like a bullet. He was that quick, and he intercepted and went 50 meters. There was no time for them to come back. Like it was a hit and run job. But that was amazing. Yeah, won at Perpignan. Now we were a much better team at home, obviously, but we had some great days. Selling out Stade des Alpes every week. It was class. I mean, the top 14 or Pro D2 even. It's an amazing place to play, because of the color, because of the atmosphere, because of the I suppose the hardcore fans. I mean, they're just absolutely different. Like at training, we would have maybe 50 or 60 old fellas just watching training and drinking tea and coffee and chatting, you know, because you put your schedule on the website so everyone knows when you train. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. Unfortunately, at the end, Serge Kemp died, and we ran into money trouble, and we had to ask players to take a pay cut, and we had to sell players to other clubs to try and stay afloat. So that wasn't nice. But yeah, the 5 years I had there, yeah, it was. I did my coaching badges there in Marcoussis with O'Gara, actually, Ron O'Gara and Simon Raoului, who used to coach Stade Francais and Biarritz. He's now back in Australia. I played for Racing. We were the only 3 foreigners on the course out of 25. So that was and very rarely, foreigners don't generally do it. Joe Schmidt had done it, but I think we were the next batch of foreigners to be allowed to do it. And again, understanding how French coaches are coached and their philosophies was really interesting as well. So yeah, absolutely loved it. My kids are bilingual, but it was hard. I mean, like no one spoke. They could all speak English, but like when they're having staff meetings, I mean, you know, they only really translate the things that you need to know. So there's so many days I was there for hours and hours, not really understanding what was happening, but it gives you good motivation to learn the language. So within 6 months, I had done German. I had studied German in school, unfortunately. So I had no French going there, but got stuck into it and thankfully picked it up pretty well. And my kids are bilingual now and had a great experience.
Amazing. And you've managed to get away without having a viral social media clip of you
speaking
French in an Irish accent like Rog.
I actually met Rog last week. He was over in Ulster. I was doing a match, Ulster La Rochelle in the Challenge Cup, and we had a couple of hours together. And yeah, it's funny. I think, to be fair to Rog, sometimes for effect, like throwing a few fucks in there, actually helps a bit. You know what I mean? And like it is. I don't know. There's a rugby French as well, because there's so many foreigners not obviously way less now than there was when I was there, but like there is a language that's kind of English strongly infiltrates it. But yeah, Roger's one is brilliant with the Cork accent. Yeah, he's hilarious. He's hilarious. His French is brilliant. He did a BA in French. Yeah,
Wow.
so his French was already very good, and yeah, it's top class. But he knows how to play it.
Incredible. I think I've actually heard maybe Drew Mitchell or someone like that being interviewed about that loss to Grenoble
Yes,
because it
that's
was
right.
because he said it was like of all people, Johnny threw the interception and they went absolutely wild.
No, but there was war because they were supposed to have a week off after it, and Bernard Laporte apparently like said the week off's cancelled. In fact, people have booked holidays to Mauritius and stuff, and like honestly, like for Toulon and if you remember their president Brugella, like he was a lunatic as well. So oh yeah, I'd say I'd say every Toulon fan and player who played in that match remember that game like it was, but it was they were coasting in the match, but they hadn't just put us away. And as I said, if they had had time for a kickoff, they probably would have won the match. But there was literally no time to restart. It was crazy. And we'd sent a bad team as well. Like it was bonkers. We thought we were going to take 50, and then we ended up winning. You know what I mean? And we actually stayed. We weren't supposed to stay. We were supposed to go home because Toulon Grenoble isn't that bad. It's actually like it's doable
Yeah.
bus journey. And the director sportif Fabrice Landreau rang the president, and suddenly we stayed another night, just a party. Like it was very funny. But just Becca Gigiashvili. So our video analyst was Chambry. Sorry, he was team manager Chambry and video analyst for Grenoble, and he brought it in Becca. And Becca, you should see the photographs of Becca when he was 18. Like he was real skinny, and he hadn't played rugby. I think he took it up. He took it up in the army or whatever, right? But he obviously started playing prop, and he came over to Chambry, and he was incredibly strong, loved the gym, and was kind of doing very well in Feather One. And he said to us, "Look, I think this guy is going to be good. Why don't you sign him, but give him back to us for a year, okay? So and let him come and do scrums every Tuesday, and then he's going to progress even more. But he'll play every week for Chambry. He'll learn the game, etc." And so basically, he was coming every Tuesday. Now he was only on about, I think he might have been on like 1,200 a month in Chambry. I think we gave him 2,000 a month or something his first year. But it was backdated for a year after. And every Tuesday he came, and he absolutely, no matter what team I put him in, no matter who I put behind him in the second row, no matter who I had beside him hooker, he just absolutely destroyed our lads, right? So I went to our president and said, "Look, we need this fella now." You know what I mean? We're battling the bottom of the table. We're getting killed in the scrum, and we couldn't get him out of his deal in Chambry, so we had to wait for a year. So like it was so moralizing seeing the Federal One prop come on a Tuesday and absolutely tool up, our top 14 guys. But it was great to look. I followed him then, obviously, and he did really well at Grenoble. Then he gets capped for Georgia, and then he gets to move to Toulon, and great fella. And yeah, he works so hard on his game and his particularly gym. Like he just absolutely loves it.
That's brilliant. That's a fantastic yeah, ascent to the top, chewing people up on a Tuesday afternoon and then nipping
Like,
back.
or like the odd time he wouldn't come because he might have an eagle, and our lads would be like nearly dancing around the scrum machine.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Just quickly, as mentioned at the top, so you won the Heineken Cup, I think it
Yeah.
would have been then with Leinster. So you say you didn't play for a club in France, but I'm guessing you must have played in a few of the kind of famous old places. Are there any kind
Oh,
of away fixtures from
yeah.
those days in
Well,
France that
look,
stand out?
Agen, Agen against Rubini Kauko.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Like, yeah, he was like he was bigger than any prop, but he couldn't move. He was so lazy but so good. Like literally, when he wanted to do something, no one could stop. And we had Brian Driscoll, we had Shane Horgan, and we had like Gordon Darcy. We had a brilliant team, a backline, and yet he was absolutely magic. Even though he looked like really unfit, and lots of stories about him coming back late and going missing and stuff. Keith Muse played for him that day as well. I would have played against Bourgois. I think we put 60 in the old Champions Cup Heineken Cup schedule. 3 and 4 were back to back. Round three,
Yeah.
round four. So I think we put 70 on them one Saturday, and then we went back over the following week, obviously. And I think O'Driscoll had to get a try in the last minute to win it. Like, it was just the most bizarre contrast in performances. And Bordeaux were obviously Bordeaux is obviously, I just looked them up today. Actually, they're down closer to the bottom of Federer One than Federer than the top. But like back in the day, they were always in the Champions Cup. Now they never really tried in it, but they were brilliant at home. You know what I mean? And the fact that a small town like Bordeaux, which wouldn't be that far from Lyon or Grenoble, like to think that they could, I suppose, support, you know, a top 6, top 14 club. I think that's the big thing for me is it's getting harder for a small town, unless you have a benefactor, to be able to have the finance to be able to compete with the bigger cities, you know. And I actually saw today that maybe Béziers and Montpellier could be merging as well. You know, they're obviously quite close to each other. Béziers, a club with unbelievable history, but finding it hard. Biarritz are finding it hard. Yeah, it's that's the only thing I think I feel sorry for, is that I used to love, you know, going to smaller towns like the Agen's, or back in the day, Perigueux were in it, and Bourgoin is another example, and being able to compete in the Champions Cup.
Fantastic. We just conscious of your time here, but there's obviously one other massive game in the Champions Cup this weekend. Bordeaux, who obviously lost to Montpellier this weekend just gone, but are seemingly favourites for the tournament. As a kind of a pundit, formerly a coach, like what do you make of this Bordeaux team at the moment?
I think that when they turn it on, no one could live with them. I thought they were so impressive against Toulouse. I thought our pack really stood up, because I think there was a feeling that maybe that's where Toulouse would dominate them. But I thought Coleman in that game was absolutely outstanding. And then obviously, you know, Bia Barry had a quiet game, and yet they still, you know, smash Toulouse. And like, I know Noel McNamara very well as the attack coach there. And you know, Luke, who's just taking his game to another level. Obviously, Jalibert is on fire. You know, he's confirmed at international level everything we saw him be able to do in Bordeaux. I think that they're the team to beat. You know, Bath can certainly give them trouble, but actually, it's a little bit different. And like, that loss at home to Montpellier is probably just going to make sure that Bath are going to face a big reaction this week. And I think they'd love to go back to back. And I also looked at, you know, the result. It's very competitive in the top 14. They're only 5 points, I think, behind second still, even with that loss. And I think they could do the double. I mean, Toulouse is just hitting a little bit of a rough patch, aren't they, as well? And if it came down to it, you know, if Bordeaux were playing Pau or somebody in a final, I think you'd still fancy Bordeaux.
Nah, Pau will do them in a final if we get there.
Yeah, Pau are good. Pau are good. It's amazing. Sorry, obviously they're good. They're second, but isn't it amazing to see? Like, I think Bordeaux are quite heavily influenced by the Toulouse way. You know, Yannick Bru, Sean Sarabee, the president Lauren Marty has long been a fan of that way. And Pau obviously have a big ex-Toulouse influence in their coaching staff as well. And yeah, it's fascinating, because I think once that's the challenge for Bath or for Leinster is if they're allowed to play the game on their feet. It's totally different than anything we see on a weekly basis in the URC or the Champions Cup, and they have the flair, the firepower to make this happen. Even look back at France, you know, in those first 4 games or 3 games when France were absolutely flying. They actually had very little ball. They just were unbelievably good at scoring out of chaos. And yeah, and that's the fear, I think, as a Leinster man, is that Toulon or Bordeaux, who I think will get there, just have the ability to score at will, even in high pressurized environments, and 5 or 6 players at the absolute top of their game. Whereas Leinster have got 23 brilliant players, but how many? Dan Sheehan is playing absolutely. So Dan Sheehan is now, he's on fire, but Leinster would need 4 or 5 more to have 9s out of 10s to be able to beat, I think, Bordeaux or probably Bath.
It should be a fantastic weekend of rugby, regardless. But this weekend you're on comms this weekend?
Yeah, I'm on comms. I'm a premier studio for Montpellier Dragon Sunday, and then I'm in the Aviva. I have a column in a newspaper called the Sunday Independent, so I'm on written duty this Saturday, and then studio on Sunday for Dragons Montpellier.
Fantastic. Well, enjoy it firsthand. I'm sure it's going to be an incredible weekend of rugby. across the board in both competitions. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been fantastic to hear about your time in France and Leinster and Toulon and everything in between. So yeah, many thanks for being a guest on Rosbif Rugby, and maybe we'll have you back soon.
Anytime, lads. Thank you.
Massive thanks to Bernard for joining us on the pod. I feel like there's some stories to tell from time at Grenoble. I sense it.
I could have done another few hours of that, I reckon. Just like name a season, name a game, and there'll be a story. I also have spent the break that we took after the interview with Bernard just watching the Rog video, and well, my girlfriend said she overheard something from the other room about Irish speaking French, and I was like, well, I'm gonna have to show you this, aren't I? And she was like, I could watch that for hours. Just
She's on board.
The Rog. She loved the opportunity to fucking on. And then I obviously had to back that up with showing us some Wigan French from Sean Edwards as well, which is also just amazing. But I'd forgotten how good the Ron Nogara video. I haven't watched it for a long time, and it's glorious. It's so good. It's so good.
It's brilliant, but it's even better now knowing that it sounds like his French is basically immaculate as well, and it's all in there for impact and effect. What a guy! Just one of the great clips in French rugby of, well, certainly the time that we've been watching it.
I reckon Bernard's got one in there. He's got one in the back closet. Someone somewhere has got a similar one of Bernard during his time at Grenoble, I reckon.
Yeah, we'll dig it out. We'll let him know. We won't stitch him up dirty on the podcast, but big thanks again to Bernard. That was fantastic. And it should be.
We also didn't talk about. Well, he coached at Dragons and he won the Challenge Cup, which I only realised from my research earlier. He won the Challenge Cup with Sale in 2002, which I did not know that he even played for Sale. But yeah, so he's the perfect man for both competitions, especially with Dragons going to Montpellier.
Yeah,
a man with
tales to tell.
Again, just listen to him for hours.
Yeah, well, you can do on Sunday lunchtime. It sounds like Montpellier Dragons, for no doubt to have the honour of playing Exeter if they can fumble their way past Ulster. We will see. It should be such an amazing weekend. I can't wait to see it all. We have also, Rob, had, there's an argument that a few of the weeks of the top 14 recently have been a little bit formulaic. One of, if not the standout round, I would say, in the top 14, the one just gone, in terms of results, away wins, late drama. It's an incredible round of fixtures, and it probably makes sense to start at the end. Toulouse, previously imperious Toulouse, at Stadium Toulouse, which I think definitely counts as at home because they play there all the bloody time. Humbled by Clermont Auvergne away. An incredible win for Crystal Furios and his boys. Where do we start?
I'm still reeling from the whole weekend. It's just like, I felt really confident in our predictions on when we did them on Friday, and we basically got them entirely wrong. I think we got like one right and we were both in agreement. That was the weird thing, and yet neither of us were anywhere near. I think we got one right.
We had 16 guesses at 8 results and got 14 of them wrong. Oh dear. Yeah.
Just bizarre. That is the weirdest result ever, isn't it? Like, they were 21-0 up after 10 minutes.
Yeah. With
one of what unbelievable try, the one finished off by Paul Grau. LaBelle gets a good bounce, doesn't he, on the little kick, but you make your own luck in that scenario. It is a phenomenal piece of skill from Mathis LaBelle. And the fact they've gone from their own 22, because at that point they're 14-0 up they scored in the first minute. They're 14-0 up inside 10 minutes. They're just going to play everything. At that point, it looks like this is yet another Toulouse at home 50+ point wins. And then it just wasn't.
Yeah. Remarkable turnaround, not least given that they played 20 minutes of the first half Clermont with 14 men, and then doubled it up with Harry Plummer, also getting done for a high shot on Calvin Gorg after Marcos Kremer got an orange card, 20-minute red.
I'd say those two high shots are at two ends of the high shot spectrum, aren't they?
Yeah,
The Kremer one
the
is
Kremer
like
one is quite reckless.
that's a lucky orange.
Yeah, the Plummer one is maybe a slightly unlucky yellow, but just to manage it from there is, if we're being honest, nothing short of remarkable. Like that game should be dead and buried. And Claremont, and I was kind of watching it a little bit patchily, I must admit. And to be honest, I kind of, until I saw the score at half time, I pretty much turned off. I was like, well, this is done and dusted. Just the level of, I mean, and they Toulouse made mistakes, but I think a lot of that was forced upon them just through the level of like old fashioned kind of Clermont will and aggression in defence. Thought their back row was phenomenal. The seven, what's his name? I had
Emery.
him. What thought was just
Team Emery. He's been in great form for like an
absolute,
unheralded player.
yeah, like as you say, very much kind of, I guess to Bernard's point, that sort of middle ground between your starlets and your superstars. He was absolutely outstanding, and even in that last 10 minutes and at the end, when there was that kind of ominousness around Toulouse, if they've got the penalty, they've gone to the corner, they're hammering away at the line, there was just such a level of like aggression. Clermont didn't look fatigued at all, which, given the men they'd had in the bin, was remarkable. It was just it was an amazing performance. And also, I took this as mainly because it was a great photo of Christophe Urios, but I've got a screenshot on my phone from, I think, like the Friday, and it was on the Rugby Rama Instagram, and it was Urios being interviewed, and the kind of crude translation was effectively, turn/change your team against Stade Toulousain. That's unthinkable for Christophe Urios, who explains why he's picking his best possible team for trip to Stadium de Toulouse. So, yeah,
Wow.
just feels like there was something a bit more on on this one. And I also really enjoyed going through pictures of Christophe Urios holding bottles of wine yesterday to put on Twitter. But yeah,
We did
an
that.
incredible result.
The Chateau released like a, what was that, was that last week or was it the week before, with the t-shirt with him like playing ball? It's amazing. How on
Urios
earth do I
core.
get how do I get my hands on one of them? I'd give up half my rugby wardrobe for an Urios t-shirt.
Size double X Urios, like
Yeah.
only done in half Urios, three-quarters Urios, like just an incredible result. Baptiste Jeannot as well. I
Jeannot,
don't
the
think
try.
there's
You
oh
don't see
my god,
Toulouse concede tries like that often, and
yeah.
he's just so sharp. Also, just as a random one, talking of Jeannot, is Dupont now like dropped? Has he
They,
been like? Are they
well,
just
he
gonna
started
bide
in.
his time?
I think there's a bit of time biding. I think there's maybe a little. I don't know. He's clearly not quite as, which I think is understandable given the injury he had. Clearly not quite as sharp as perhaps he's seen before. I don't know if it's. I think I saw a couple of the sort of Toulouse journalist commentators before the game saying they actually were quite enjoying how his time had been managed, because Grau's been in really good form.
Yeah.
And like what an absolute joke of an option off the bench, and managed time, slowly bring him back in. And then saw the kind of inevitable knee-jerk reaction after this game was he wasn't able to change the pace of the game enough, and things like that. And I don't know, I feel like that's probably a little bit harsh for a bloke with that much credit in the bank. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think he hasn't, sort of thing, he's only started. Obviously, the injury is a fairly significant part of that, but he hasn't started many top 14 games in the last 2 years. Like, he started in the Champions Cup, and he's obviously started for France. But in the top 14, he's like, I think it's less than a handful, basically.
Well, I imagine that's also there's a caveat to that of at 9, because there was a period where he started at 10 quite a bit.
That's true.
Like when he wasn't playing for France during the Six Nations, but he was about to go to sevens, wasn't he? He was playing at 10 with Grau at 9 or Saito at 9.
Yeah. But no,
Quick note on the kits. So Toulouse were in a special hybrid collab with Nike and Toulouse FC. It's quite nice kit. I actually think is that a standard Clermont away kit? I think it's amazing, that blue one.
Yeah, it's
It's
cool, isn't
really
it?
nice. I really like that Clermont kit.
Yeah, they also, the kind of collaboration was they played the two games in the same weekend, right? So Toulouse played Monaco on Saturday, and they did a kind of like an activation, I think in Chez Tonton. They changed it into like or they had Chez Tonton had
No.
something to do with it,
Oh
but
God.
it looked unrecognizable because it was all very, yeah, sort of, how would
There's
you
a hell
put
of a
it?
lot of stuff to cover up.
Stylized, yeah, all very kind of black and gold and that sort of thing. I'll be honest, I think in a great year for kit releases, it was nice idea, but pretty average.
Didn't feel that necessary.
Yeah, definitely.
But then they do like the odd spurious kit, don't they? Like the NASA one
The
last year.
NASA one, that was an absolute, yeah, the Katy
At
Perry
least
going to space kit
at
was.
least at least the Toulouse FC one is a little bit more of a natural bedfellow for Stade Toulousain. But yeah.
Yeah. But either which way, an amazing win for Clermont. And that's one of the reasons the top six is looking so well, top seven is looking so remarkably tight at the moment. Another big one, which we mentioned earlier, you're wearing the UBB shirt, Montpellier at Chaban Delmas. They're a bit late, Rob, with your attendance. Like, yeah, they obviously thought you were coming along this week and the curse could have continued.
What did I say to you on Friday at 8:35 p.m? I said to you when we were doing our predictions, UBB have gone full noise, MHR haven't, so the jeopardy on that is reduced. So I basically wrote it off as guaranteed win for Bordeaux. Shows that we literally know nothing about it.
I think they had.
Feel free to turn off now.
Yeah, I think they've got a few injuries, but I think they went okay, didn't they? Montpellier. Arthur
just
Van
looked a bit
Son was
weird.
playing. It looked a little bit disjointed as a team, but a couple again of remarkable things in this game. One is the fact that, I mean, the discipline in the top 14 has fallen apart in recent weeks, and this round in particular. But Domingo Miotti scored not quite the last kick of the game, but pretty much the last kick of the game. In the build-up, Montpellier are down to 13 men against 15. Jefferson Poirot gets oranged off, which was a little bit very much on the clumsy rather than violent end of the high tackle spectrum, but could be a big thing heading into the Bath game. And
Is he going to get a ban?
I don't know. I haven't seen anything to suggest he definitely will, but I would imagine there's a chance, right? And he's been, particularly in the Champions Cup, he's been amazing this year.
Yeah.
And Montpellier sneak it. It's like, in what world having, I think Maxime Lamotte goes over to make it 23-21. No, that was the final score.
21-20. After Montpellier have had Vunipola and Diaby Simbin within a minute of each other. This was the round of the concurrent reds, concurrent yellows. There was millions of them.
Yeah.
It was basically one in every game almost.
Yeah,
or two in every, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Just incredible. And again, like, to all intents, but this wasn't on Premier Sports. I actually went to watch this, and it, for some reason, the Saturday night.
I don't know why. I noticed that during the day, but the full replay is there, so I don't know what happened there. But presumably there was some Brazilian Primeira Liga that was more important.
Yeah. But just a kind of wild last 10 minutes of concede the lead, lose two players, and still win the game. Yeah, remarkable. Couple of UBB old boys as well. John Etchegaray started at 15, looked very good. Mamadou Diaby also there.
Yeah.
Yeah, people who've played there very recent times. So yeah, and I mean what it does, and we'll talk about the other top six game in just a sec. But if we get the calculator up, or not the calculator, the table, there are 5 points between second and seventh.
It was a weekend where it felt like it could/should have stretched out.
Yeah,
and it's like every result has condensed it like massively because Clermont got the win, because Bordeaux got the win, because Bordeaux lost, because Stade Francais beat Pau. Like they all of the results, and with Racing having the easy game away at Montauban, like every single result has brought that top seven closer together.
Yeah.
God, so there's actually a risk that Bordeaux don't make the top six. They are level on points with Racing in seventh. That feels strange. That feels really strange.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Just to round out that top six, you mentioned it there, Rob. Your boys Poe will be pretty frustrated, I would have thought, with their loss away at Stade Francais. Also got stuck into the concurrent yellow
Twice.
twice. Although
It,
one at the end, right? The
yeah, what
very end.
the
But
Zagur
on
ones were the
paper,
yeah.
on paper. Um,
So I was following this on what is normally a very good app, and one I was just using there, Tribe. But Tribe seemed to neglect to tell me of any penalty tries. So I actually had the halftime score as 18-3 to Poe. And then at 68 minutes, I had Poe 34-20 up. So when I then saw that Poe had lost, or 32-20 up, and when I saw that Poe had then lost 34-32, having in my head been 12 points up with 12 minutes to go, I was absolutely livid. Having since watched the game and then actually seeing the real sequence of events, it's a bit closer. But in my head, it was like the full meltdown. And I was raging. That said, we were 8 points up, I think, with 5 minutes to go.
yeah.
I think so. We have thrown it away a little bit. You mentioned the concurrent yellows there. The ones at the end are fine. Like they are legit. The ones in the first half, I think, are both pretty harsh. The Montoya one, I don't think I've seen that, so I don't know if you've seen it. But like, he basically gets done for he concedes a penalty try for pulling down a maul, but it's pulling down a maul in open play. He's effectively like made a tackle, and when the ref shouts like held,
Yeah.
they someone like drags it down. It's basically that, and for some reason
Bit over officious.
that's awarded a penalty try and a yellow card, and it's kind of like if you see it in real time, it's like, but he's just tackled him. Like he's just stopped them all. Like he's not aggressively dragged it down. It's not like it's a kind of 13-man maul that he's just lobbed himself underneath. And that is 7 points when they probably would have, yeah. I don't know. I actually think Poe weren't fantastic, and I thought Stad had a lot more they were a lot more clinical. They used the physicality well when they needed to. They were pretty direct. They didn't show much in attack, but they showed that. I think we obviously said to Bernard that the Toulon tight five is the best tight five in the league, but apparently Paul Gostard has been talking up his tight five as the best tight five of the league, and certainly at scrum time, like it's a force to be reckoned with. And Poe did struggle there. They also struggled a little bit at line out, which was I think mainly to do with Montoya's throwing. Can be a little bit iffy, but so Poe weren't, even though they kind of got out to a good lead, they weren't great. And I kind of think I'd love to have come into this as like Poe were robbed and refereeing decisions were a disgrace, which some of them were a bit weird, but I thought Stade Francais, it was a pretty even game. I thought Stade were decent.
Yeah.
Some slightly concerning injuries. Both Atasogbe and Gorganza went off in the first half, which could be a bit of a concern. Hopefully the fact that they've now got a week off. Should also say that, before Leo Barre dropped out late, Stade Francais made a whopping 15 changes to the starting lineup from the previous week. I don't know whether that justifies it, because they kind of just scraped through. Well, they did scrape through. I don't know whether that justifies the team selection. I don't know. Poe looked stronger early on.
Yeah, they've got a good they're a powerful bench as well, don't they? Stade Francais. Like they can be direct for a long period of time.
Yeah.
I think that's two games there. La Rochelle earlier in the season and Poe, they've won last kick of the game on home soil. So yeah, keeping themselves in the mix very much so. The other two we mentioned, Racing kind of cruised past Montauban, the other Parisian side, which is not a huge surprise. The other two home wins, Toulon Bayonne, Bernard mentioned at the top, fairly convincing. And
In
Lyon.
the end, yeah, it was much closer until,
We've seen
Toulon.
that was Toulon last year, wasn't it? They just kind of ground sides down so often.
Bayonne had a bit of a fight back and then to get it to within 7. So it was still they were only 7 points ahead with about 10, 15 minutes to go after a try, as the commentator called him, from Olivier Cowie. Olivier Cowie. So
Excellent.
It's gone full Carl Martin on that. Yeah. Francicizing, is that a word? Francicizing.
It is now, yeah.
The Ollie Cowie. But yeah, Bernard was right. Like the pace out wide from Toulon is is exceptional. Like Drayan's done some freakish things. Furte was amazing in this. It's just and Brex is playing really well, and Garbisi played at 10, and they looked all right. Getting it out. I think if you've got Garbisi with Brex there as a kind of someone that he knows that outlet pretty well, and with Jaminet, I think it's a much better team. They look like a team that can attack like they should. Also, you know the Georgian lad at number 8, Shiashvili?
Yeah.
Do you know how old he is?
Isn't he like 19 or something?
Yeah, I mean,
he is.
Tell the passport that.
Yeah, he
I
is.
couldn't believe it.
An enormous.
I saw that he was like Academy Espoir, like was on All Rugby, and I was like, what? Jesus.
Yeah, he's kind of like the.
He's also massive.
He's kind of like the guy when you're playing sort of under 15s rugby at school who rocks up to the game smoking, driving with 2 kids.
The Georgian Lenny Nucci.
Yeah, I'd say even more so than Lenny Nucci. He's
Joel Merkler.
Vast looking man.
He's playing quite well as well at the moment.
Yeah, he was quite good in that. The games I've seen him playing. Yeah, he was good. Just to quickly round out then the other home wins. Cass sort of limping end to the season continues and not clinical enough.
They nearly got over the line.
Well, they had, but the remarkable kind of stats from this, I think they basically had all the possession, all the territory, won all of their scrums and 90% of their line-outs, and still.
How many penalties though? How many penalties?
So here's the beautiful one. I did actually look at this. They conceded 7 penalties, which is what, a third of the usual. But 2 of those were yellow cards. So
they have 2 yellows, did they?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That was one of the first stuff, wasn't there?
Yeah, just not quite clinical enough. It's just so many games this year where they've been kind of there and thereabouts. But Leon come through. Saw Mikel Guillard. Yeah, just snuck past Mikel Guillard. Fairly serious injury, not ACL, but they reckon a couple of months out. He went limping off, which is a shame because he's, well, I think probably one of our favourite players. Fantastic
Is that top 8 done for Cast, do you think?
Now
7 points off Toulon.
I think so. They've also, their Cast run-in is not amazing. Got to go to Po.
The Rosbeef Derby.
Yeah, although that would be such a Cast game to win unbeaten at home. They've got to go to Po. They've got to go to.
I'd love them to beat Montpellier at home, I have to say.
They've got to go to Perpignan and then Cast Toulon. Could win 3 of those 4. Yeah. I don't think that's maybe going to be quite enough, but we will see. It's a lot
of ground to make up, isn't it? 7 points.
We will see. Yeah, it certainly is. Now, just to quickly round out the other games which we mentioned earlier. So, shout out to, or was it David or Daniel? Daniel Rogers, if you're listening to the pod, who kept us in touch of what sounded like a lovely trip. I think Carcassonne followed by Perpignan.
Lovely.
Now, I'm assuming he will be more welcome back in Perpignan than Nolan Le Garrec, who one was Rugby Rama's Player of the Week for scoring 26 of his team's 31 points, including kicking the kind of game-winning penalty right at the death. He also has a bit of previous with Perpignan. It was against Perpignan for Racing. He went
the
full
dive.
Oscar-winning, the dive, and then scored in the first 9 minutes here and proceeded to give it the full "I'm not listening to you" to the Catalan crowd. And then post-match,
I thought you were going to say done like a Klinsmann or like a.
Well, it was this one. It was the like behind the ear kind of thing. And then proceeded after the game. That wasn't enough to say perhaps the Amy Giroud crowd, I believe the translation was the Amy Giroud crowd could perhaps take a bit of a few learnings from the Stade de la Rabine in Vannes, where obviously he is from and famously is silent for kickers. So yes, I don't think he's the most welcome or most popular bloke in Perpignan for both his antics and for seemingly single-handedly taking La Rochelle past Perpignan. Not that it matters too much to USAP, who I think have been eyeing up that access match game for the best part of half a season, but certainly for La Rochelle, it keeps them in the hunt.
Hang on. So no, they're not. I was about to say, Montauban now officially relegated? They're not. They live on.
They live
Thanks
on.
to thanks to Nolan Le Garrec, and Mont live on for another. The Great Escape is still on.
What an escape that would be. Should we briefly kind of touch on Pro Day because we've got the proper business end coming, but I think the week just gone kind of confirmed a little bit what we already knew, what we thought was going to happen. So I mean, Van were miles clear, but the five of the six barragistes are confirmed with Oyonnax beating Argennes. So Van currently miles ahead top. Colomiers Provence and Valence Roman, who beat Brive in an absolutely belting game that was live on FR UK. Did you catch a bit of this?
Yeah, I caught the first half, and I think you caught the second half. Between us, we've seen a full game. Yeah, no, I obviously tuned in to see me at half time. That was the main highlight of this game.
Yes.
Which was very kind of the guys at FR UK to kind of give a little bit of a behind the scenes or in the ground experience. Yeah, I thought Valence Romans were fantastic. They were so good to watch. Like they're, I think, kind of said in one of the previews I did, and you can catch them on YouTube and potentially TikTok. There's still a few technical issues, but we do have some previews. That like with Mora, Joris Mora at the back, the way that he combines with Mere, like that kind of, I think Mora has played a bit of fly half, and they've kind of got that dual playmaker thing going on, and they just look so expansive with those two. I was really impressed with Dylan Idrissi at 13 as well, who I think is on loan, is he not, from Racing?
That sounds about right. Yeah. Caught me off guard, but I think you are right.
But yeah, because you want to talk about Paul Marsan.
Yeah. Oh, I've forgotten about Paul Marsan. So Paul Marsan, who has played, I think, 4 games now and looked great in this match as well, scored
He
2
looked
tries.
really good.
So he was playing at Niort,
Yeah.
who we've mentioned a few times, initially because they had a fantastic start to the season in Nationale. Very sadly, come across kind of financial problems and have been, I don't know what the word is, disbanded, disqualified, relegated. I think they'll start again in Fédéral Trois next year or something like that. But Paul Marsan has come in the last 5 games, started, not just in the squad, started all of their games from round 24 onwards, and has only lost one away at Nevers. He has gone from kind of scraping away with, imagine what was probably the lowest budget team in Nationale, and not that Valence have a huge budget, but eyeing up a potential home Pro Day de barrage game. And for a side like Valence, whose story this year has been pretty remarkable, that is quite some going.
It looks quite funny on All Rugby, and I'm pretty sure they may have fallen foul of this. It's like it looks like he's lost every game this season.
Yeah.
But we know that that's not true because New York were actually going quite well, but because they've been cancelled. Yeah, match cancelled. Redressement judiciaire de New York. Yeah, I mean, I think he was going all right himself in Nationale as well with New York, but I'd love to. I quite like. It's quite frustrating because I quite want to see what these actual results were, but you can't see what they are anymore. Such as the termination of their season.
Yeah. Speaking of Nationale, Rob, and at the bottom of Pro Day, Carcassonne, something. Well, no, I think they are
They're
done,
done.
aren't they?
They're done.
They are
Yeah.
done. They're 11 points adrift of Mont de Marsan, having lost at home to Béziers, which I think was always going to be a tricky proposition this year. And I think to be fair to Carcassonne, they've hardly disgraced themselves. I'm sure they will be back, but it
Well, they've
just
lasted
shows
longer
than Nice did last year.
Nice did last year.
Yeah. So they will be back in Nationale. The race above that, Stade Montois a couple adrift of Béziers, 46 points, 48, Biarritz on 49. Aurillac narrowly avoided being, well, they lost, but they could have been dragged in ever so slightly further if Mont de Marsan had beaten Grenoble away, which they failed to do by a single point late on, which was quite a result. So huge amount to play for in the next couple of weeks.
So do we think that the LAC are in danger of actually being in this
No,
relegation scrap?
they're 6 points ahead of Mont de Marsan, and their next game, who have they got? Aurillac. They've got to host Grenoble, and then they've got to go to Oyonnax, who could be. It's not a done deal, is it? But yeah, they're slightly
Yeah.
limping their way to the finish line.
Their form in 2026 is like
Falling off
staggeringly
completely.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But hopefully, I think we've got a soft spot for the LAC. So hopefully, they will not be contesting the access match to Nationale. Although those barrage games have been confirmed, we've got top of the table Albion first, Nice second, so they'll go straight through to a semi-final. But the two other games, Massy hosting Narbonne. So tough trip to Paris for Narbonne and Chambéry, two teams mentioned on by Bernard Jackman. Was not expecting Périgueux to come out earlier, but there we go.
No.
Chambéry, they of Becca Gigashvili's former club, will host Périgueux, who it sounds like once hosted Bernard Jackman in a Leinster game, which is very cool.
No, I think that surely that was a
Sale?
top 40, or I don't know actually.
I do remember when we went to Périgueux, there was nipped into the little kind of tobacco shop, and there was a Harlequins flag in there. So in some recent memory, Challenge Champions Cup games, there was maybe when it was sponsored by
Yeah.
like Amlin. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I reckon them. So yeah, lots of exciting rugby to come in National. Right, shall we? You look like you've seen something here, Rob.
No, I'm just gonna. They were in Pro de Deux in 2011. Elite. Was that the top 14 before it was the top 14? That's a curveball, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry. Yes, Périgueux were in Elite between 1998 and 2001, which I think was effectively the top 14.
There you go. Périgueux as well. I saw Nahum Merrigan has signed for another couple of years, formerly
Oh,
of
nice.
Bath, and been doing great things down there. So congrats to him. Lovely part of the world as well. Okay, let's park it there. Loads of rugby. We'll come back, a couple of petty fours, and we'll get excited for the Champions Cup. Okay, Rob, petty four time. You look shocked again. You look like you've just seen something remarkable. Is it about Périgueux?
Yeah, they finished third in their pool in one of the Challenge Cups behind the qualifiers Caerphilly and Narbonne. Who remembers
I think
Caerphilly
I
in?
think this was the year. I feel like we looked this up after when we went to Périgueux because I kind of remember the Harlequins connection. Did a bit of digging. Might have been the year like Narbonne won it.
Yeah, possibly. I can't. There's not much in the way of years here, but yeah, just says anyway. Anyway, let's move on.
Anyway,
That is a rabbit hole that I can go down when
yeah.
I'm bored at work tomorrow.
Oh no, Narbonne lost to Harlequins
They
that
lost to
year.
Harlequins
That's
in the final.
why.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. And I
Do you know
think
who their fly half was that day?
Gonzalo Quesada. We've
Yeah, I'm
had this
pretty sure
conversation.
Have we? Oh, there we
I
go.
think so. Right, Challenge Cup rabbit holes aside, anything that's kept you interested you've seen in the last week away from yeah, talk to me.
Well, I
What's been funny?
did see that US Tyros won their barrage game against RC Aubenas Vals, so they're through to the next round against CSVN. So the two pools merging. But Richard, you should have gone to see your boys cast this weekend. Do you know why?
Cast at Leon. I do not know why. What happened? Who was there?
Well, I found this out via Untapped, my beer app. It was the Leon Beer Festival this weekend.
Oh, very nice.
So you should have gone. What a double header that would have been. Leon Beer Festival and Leon v Cast. I feel like that could have been an absolute cracker.
The
of a
Gerlon
weekend.
looked sun drenched as well. It looked a lot of fun. Next time have to be next year instead.
Yeah, we'll have to look out for it. That'd be quite a good weekend out, I reckon. I reckon Leon Beer Festival's probably pretty good. Did see some of the breweries there. It looked good.
Very nice. A couple of things I've seen. So neither of these are actually directly related to French rugby, but they are
Neither was mine, to be fair.
they are related to things we've discussed a lot. So we like to bring a bit of cuisine, culinary chat to this podcast. We've spoken about the Carcassonne Butcher, Player of the Month, that kind of thing. It feels like this sort of collaboration that the Bulls in South Africa have could go further. There's a picture. I don't know who this is who's put it up, but there is official licensed product, Bulls Boerewors. There's a Bulls branded sausage that you can buy, not just like not sponsored, not supplied to the Bulls, an actual official sausage or boerewors. That yeah,
There
that is.
must be.
I
There
don't know if you
must
can
be.
buy. I don't know if you can buy that in the club shop. I don't know what the crack is.
I remember when our friend Chris went to see Bristol at La Rochelle. He had like there was like branded, which he must we didn't find obviously, but in the stadium there was like branded like La Rochelle pots of terrine and rillette and pate and stuff.
These,
So
yeah,
don't know if
these.
they're in general sale in like shops in La Rochelle
I
or
think
not, but
these very much look like you could pick them up in your local like
yeah.
Sainsbury's.
Well, what would it be over there? Woolworths? I don't know.
Yeah, not sure, but yeah, I certainly when I nip down to Crystal Palace Aldi, there's not like red and blue bedecked bacon or anything like that. But maybe this is a
More's the
niche.
pity, yeah.
More is the pity, exactly. The second thing, and you may well have seen this, but one of our favourite categories, favourite things to discuss, is the own try of the season for self-sabotage at its best.
There was
And
one from Carl Sinclair in this weekend. Do you see that one?
oh no, I haven't.
He's basically facing his own try line and passes it to Urban Artigurai. It's the Urban Artigurai. He basically it's just an intercept, but it's just quite an obvious one, and it's always funny when you've got a tight five forward throwing a spiral pass, a la Vaha Mina all those years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh God, that was
Yeah, just
amazing.
giving the ball to a winger, like fizzing a spiral pass straight to the opposition winger. Yeah, but yeah, carry on. Sorry, Richard.
No, I don't know if you saw Super Rugby's back. I don't know if you saw any of the footage from the weekend of the game between the Chiefs and Fijian Drua.
I don't know.
But Elisa Druasise,
Yeah,
apologies if I've got his name wrong, plays for
hell of a
Drua.
player.
Hell of a player. Has played 15, I think, in the World Cup in France. He has produced one of, if not the greatest, own try of the season of all seasons moment. If you haven't seen it, effectively a grubber kick from behind his own goal line, which just goes to a Chiefs player who is stood on the goal line. It is like nothing as it's happening. You will not believe the level of meltdown that occurs. It's like all of the mad Jalabert Ramos inappropriate kicks when you least expect it rolled into one with the most disastrous consequences. It is like the new yardstick for own try of the season, and it's just such a shame it didn't happen somewhere in the top 14.
Didn't we see one in like? Didn't I send you one a few weeks back that was something outrageous, like something similar to that? I can't even remember where it was from, but
I don't know. Yeah, I think so. But yeah, have a look. It's one of the best.
I've just realised that like we've not spoken. We've got to the end. We've not spoken about our weekends. I was at London Welsh on Saturday. It's kind of
You said
completely.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, that's got nothing to do with own tries. It's just kind of completely occurred to me. Shout out to Richard who came and say hello. That was very kind of him to kind of come and have a chat to me. And yeah, no sign of Elgin. I think he was busy at Wales v France. Wales v England in the Women's Six Nations, but yeah, lovely day out. 900 capacity attendance at Richmond's ground, the Richmond Athletic Ground. It was moved. Do you know why it wasn't being played at Old Deer Park, Richard?
Cricket game.
Correct. Do you know who played at the Old Deer Park this weekend?
I know that our club Malden Wanderers did on the Sunday.
Yeah. There you go. In a quirk of fate, but yeah. So. But yeah, they were at the Richmond ground rather than the Old Deer Park. But yeah, lovely. 900. I mean, fewer people than US Tyros the previous weekend, but raucous, I would say. Very, very lively.
Very good. That rounds out for another week. We should mention, actually, we haven't touched on the Women's Six Nations. It's all building towards Le Crunch as well.
Nice.
Both teams unbeaten, which is, going to be a lot of fun. They're at the Marcel Michelin this weekend.
Nice.
France v Ireland. So, yeah, we'll touch on that as it reaches its denouement in a few weeks' time. Rob, in the meantime, you can follow us where?
At Rosbeast Rugby on Instagram, X/Twitter, Blue Sky, YouTube, TikTok. There may or may not be some stuff up about trips to Bordeaux because it is obviously, if you're a Bath fan, that is a hell of a weekend got lined up. I don't think I have any content from my most recent trip to Bordeaux because of my technical issues with losing a phone. But then I may try and get some stuff up if I can find any. But yeah, may or may not be stuff. But get in touch. If you know any bar fans, tell them to get in touch. Tell them to give us a follow and get in touch with us. We will do it much more justice than over message than we will in a couple of minutes here.
Yeah, we've got plenty in the Bordeaux bank, right, from various trips. So yeah, you'll be safe with us. Enjoy the Champions Cup and Challenge Cup this weekend. Massive thank you again to Bernard Jackman. It was fantastic to have him on the podcast. Rob, I think that's it. Bank holiday as well this weekend, so you can watch both games, maybe tuck into a few red wines and sleep it off on Monday. Happy days.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Maybe.
All right. I've been Richard. That's been Rob. We've been the Rosbiff Rugby Podcast. And for another week, au revoir.
Au revoir.